Thank you, everyone, for joining. My name is Jose Hernandez. I'm with United Spinal Association, and I'm honored to be here with Angie and Dan from Sunrise Medical to talk about a little wheelchair maintenance. Before we get started, we do have closed captioning offered. You can just hit the closed captioning button below, or if you would like to view it a different way, we are using a service called Otter AI, and you can click on the link once I put it into our chat system right now. You can click on the link. Also, I just want to put this disclaimer out there. All of the information given today is for educational purposes. If you don't feel comfortable in doing some of the things that you will see on your own, or it's outside of your skill level, please contact your doctor or place where you received your wheelchair for further assistance. Please, Angie and Dan, introduce yourselves and what do you do and what are we going to cover?
All right, I'll go first because I'm actually not going to talk a whole lot, which might surprise Dan because I'm a clinical educator for Sunrise Medical, based here right outside Washington, D.C., about 7 miles from D.C. I'm in Virginia. And typically I travel all over the country speaking and educating therapists and educating your wheelchair technology suppliers on evaluations and whatnot. So primary backgrounds within pediatrics, but also did a lot of consultations and some interesting things with the adult population and whatnot. And I actually recruited my coworker, Dan Critchfield. He's out in Fresno. I'll let him introduce himself. And then Dan, I'm gonna let you take over and I'll just be quiet and jump in when needed.
Okay, so hello everybody. I'm Dan Critchfield. I do work for Sunrise Medical. I am an HEP as well, and I am the product trainer for our internal training, and we do some external training as well. So it's all primarily about the product that I do. Angie's more to the clinical aspect, so she's handles that type of stuff. We were requested to provide some information, maybe something you know. Hopefully a lot of this is just going to be review, but you may find a few nuggets here and there about things that you may not know about what is recommended for your chairs. As always, you should refer to your owner's manuals. And if you have not or did not receive an owner's manual for your product, all of the manufacturers provide owner's manuals that can be downloaded at any time off of their webpage. Just do a search on their webpage and you can find an owner's manual for your chair. They're supposed to be handed out to people. Sometimes that gets omitted, but we do want to make sure that we have educated users in the field with their products. So what we're going to do here, we're just going to have a few slides, probably more than I needed, but of some general maintenance elements and some for both manual and for power, and we're also going to do some stuff for the seating as well. And
thank you, everyone, for joining. My name is Jose Hernandez. I'm with United Spinal Association, and I'm honored to be here with Angie and Dan from Sunrise Medical to talk about a little wheelchair maintenance. Before we get started, we do have closed captioning offered. You can just hit the closed captioning button below, or if you would like to view it a different way, we are using a service called Otter AI, and you can click on the link once I put it into our chat system right now. You can click on the link. Also, I just want to put this disclaimer out there. All of the information given today is for educational purposes. If you don't feel comfortable in doing some of the things that you will see on your own, or it's outside of your skill level, please contact your doctor or place where you received your wheelchair for further assistance. Please, Angie and Dan, introduce yourselves and what do you do and what are we going to cover?
All right, I'll go first because I'm actually not going to talk a whole lot, which might surprise Dan because I'm a clinical educator for Sunrise Medical, based here right outside Washington, D.C., about 7 miles from D.C. I'm in Virginia. And typically I travel all over the country speaking and educating therapists and educating your wheelchair technology suppliers on evaluations and whatnot. So primary backgrounds within pediatrics, but also did a lot of consultations and some interesting things with the adult population and whatnot. And I actually recruited my coworker, Dan Critchfield. He's out in Fresno. I'll let him introduce himself, and then Dan, I'm going to let you take over, and I'll just be quiet and jump in when needed.
Okay, so hello everybody. I'm Dan Critchfield. I do work for Sunrise Medical. I am an ATP as well, and I am the product trainer for our internal training, and we do some external training as well. So it's all primarily about the product that I do. Angie's more to the clinical aspect, so she's handles that type of stuff. We were requested to provide some information, maybe something you know. Hopefully a lot of this is just going to be review, but you may find a few nuggets here and there about things that you may not know about what is recommended for your chairs. As always, you should refer to your owner's manuals. And if you have not or did not receive an owner's manual for your product, all of the manufacturers provide owner's manuals that can be downloaded at any time off of their webpage. Just do a search on their webpage and you can find an owner's manual for your chair. They're supposed to be handed out to people. Sometimes that gets omitted, but we do want to make sure that we have educated users in the field with their product. So what we're going to do here, we're just going to have a few slides, probably more than I needed, but of some general maintenance elements and some for both manual and for power, and we're also going to do some stuff for the seating as well. And so we're just going to go ahead and dive on in. A couple of things about the content disclosure. Again, this is from Sunrise. Now, you may have a product that's not from Sunrise. Again, those owner's manuals and those recommendations that are provided by your manufacturer is what you should always look for. And this is, again, just for information only. This is not necessarily, we're not giving you directions necessarily. We're just giving you recommendations that you can take as you need it. So first of all, we're going to talk about the cushions themselves, because every person's wheelchair should have a cushion on it. So it's kind of more of a general thing that we think that people should be aware of when it comes to cleaning and maintenance of this. And this really came out because of the recent COVID activities that we're all aware of and we're all being a part of. We're all in this together, we hear, right? And so these are just some general things that you should know. First of all, your cushion will have a cover, and that cover is always going to be something that can be removed. Even from a very basic cushion on up, you should have a cushion that has a cover that can be removed. For Sunrise, that means that cushion, that cover for the cushion is actually something that you can launder and you can clean. So the instructions that we give to people is that you should remove the cover, always turn it inside out. That helps to protect the integrity of the surface as it's going through this wash cycle. And then you just wash it in warm water, and then you can tumble dry at low heat. You do not need to iron those. Basically, that's just the kind of thing. But it is good to do that on a regular basis. Many of the manufacturers offer a second cover that you can get sometimes at no charge. It's good to have one that's clean and one that you're using, and then that way you're not down when you're not able to use the cushion during that time when it's getting cleaned, and you can just put it into the normal type of wash that way. So if you have two cushions and you cycle those through, that could be really good. If you have a microclimatic cushion, these are the ones that have the airflow in them. So the first one is that stretch fabric. If you have the microclimatic, it's the exact same thing. You're basically going to do the same process where you remove the cushion, you turn it inside out. And you may have one that has an incontinent cover, or the cover itself may actually have some of that built in. If you have that type of material, it's good to just wipe those down with water or with a cleaning wrap. I've got a thing here of Clorox that you can recommend to just basically pull these out, and you can clean those, and then you can wash those lightly as well. Now, the foam base itself, the base that's inside, we do not recommend that you wash that or that you soak that in water, but that you just wipe that down when needed, okay? Now, if you have, this is not on the slide, but if you have an insert, maybe an air bladder or a fluid bladder inside of that Velcros in, you can take that out, wipe that, get all the crevices, get all of that that stuff out of there that may accumulate, and that way you could clean that both, reset it back into the well of the cushion. Again, obviously reinstalling the actual cover. Now this goes for both the cushion and for the back. You should be able to do that on both of those. The covers should come off, and if they can, again, turn them inside out and basically get those, keep those nice and clean. Now it should be noted that in this the new era or the new normal of COVID, there are resources at your disposal. So if you go onto the website or onto the internet and you just type in resna.org, you will find that there's a section, I've got just a snippet on this page of just recommendations that you can find and resources you can find just for COVID-19. These can be really helpful because if you're trying to figure out how to get service, what kind of precautions you need to take, whatever, we recommend you go to that because that is a recognized site that has all of this type of information. And below here, you will see there are just a number of different topics that you can cover. One of the things that I found on here that was really important, or really kind of key, was in the era of COVID, how do you basically maintain the social distancing and the cleanliness that you need when you're in your chair? So there's a gentleman on there that put this, and I have a link here that you can click on and go to. And I've actually just taken some snippets out. His name is Peter Axelson. He is a huge advocate in the arena of mobility. He actually sits on the RESNA board. He creates the standards. He has a test lab where he's really involved. He's actually in a chair. He was injured in a rock climbing accident when he was in the Air Force. And so he has firsthand experience about how to basically maintain the sanitation of himself in his chair while during this COVID activities. So what he recommends is that whenever you return home, you should basically take the opportunity to clean your chair, okay? You should wash your hands. We hear this from everywhere, from the president on down to everything. Everybody says, wash your hands. And I mean, again, it's good to wash it for 20 seconds. Again, this is a repeat. Using, if you can't, get your hands on that. I do have, like these Clorox wipes or any type of alcohol-based wipes that you can do to basically wash your hands. A fingernail brush, they recommend you use that as well. Again, those are all kind of things that we know because of what we've been hearing. What I thought was interesting is that when you're pushing your chair, you're essentially picking up all of the debris that's on the ground. And we know that COVID the actual virus can sit on surfaces, and it can be on the ground or whatever as you're rolling your chair. So as you do that, you're rolling the chair, you're picking up possibly that virus on your tires, and it can transfer to your hands, okay? Now, what he recommends is that you can use gloves. Now, I know a lot of people use the leather gloves with the fingers cut out and different things to help with the grip and stuff. But another alternative is I like to use these orange gloves that I actually got. I think I got them from Harbor Freight or something. But they're a disposable glove, but they're also very thick so that they're not going to tear easily. Not like a surgical glove that is going to end up tearing easily. These have nice, they have a grip on them and stuff, and you can use these when you're out and about and then just dispose them. However, if you do use gloves, it's important to understand that if your hands are dirty and then you put your hands inside the gloves, then obviously the inside of the glove can get affected as well. So it's important to know where you're going to put your gloves, how you're going to basically maintenance your gloves itself, because those can be a carrier of the virus and should be considered when going out and about. Now, he recommends that if you need to clean your chair, there's a few things that he does as a kind of a practical terms on how he goes about cleaning his chair. He says essentially at home, he says after he washes his hands, he takes a couple of washcloths, and as he's rolling around in the bathroom or whatever, he takes those with the alcohol-based sanitizer on it, and he just rubs it around his tires as he's going and moving around. He says you can go in circles or going straight. Because in about 20 feet, you're going to basically be able to clean those rims and or hand rims or tires about 3 times, which is just a kind of a good practice, because that way, if you've got anything that you've picked up from being out and about, then you can basically get it and clean that off of those times. So that's just his recommendations because he's, again, an actual user to do that. The other thing he talks about is the surfaces, and you can see the picture here on the side. He says why he's at it. He takes the wash cloth or the Clorox, and he basically contacts or washes down all the contacts, including the armrest, his wheel locks, his footrest, obviously his wheels and tires, and his push handles, all of those things which can be carriers of that, where people have, he or his, maybe somebody who was attended has washed that, has touched that, he can have the opportunity to wash that down. And then if you're a power chair user, obviously the main thing that you're going to look for is the joystick itself. Being able to clean that joystick, because that is your primary contact with your hands. Getting that, making sure that it's clean, and making sure that you don't use some harsh bleach on that, because a lot of those components are not going to do well with that. But the alcohol-based ones is really what is recommended. So let's talk. We're going to focus first of all on manual chairs, and then we'll switch to power chairs as we go through this. I don't know whether or not you want to stop for questions as we go, or we just wait to the end. But I'm free with that. You can interrupt me if you need to. So first of all, cleaning your manual chair.
Dan, hold on. I saw Jesus. I keep calling you Jesus because I was on a meeting with our product manager, Jesus, right before this. Jose, you're still muted. There was a question that came in.
I was just answering that question.
Okay, very good. Yeah, so Dan can't see the chat, but definitely feel free to type stuff in.
Mm-hmm. Please, if you have any questions, type them in or use the Q&A feature, and we'll definitely get to them.
Yeah. So, cleaning your chair. This is an excerpt right out of our owner's manuals that basically, and I'm going to try to refer to those as often as I can, because that's really where the bulk of the work has been done for us as we've researched about what's best for your maintenance of your chair. So the paint finish on this obviously is something that's important on a manual chair. You can clean the surface with mild soap detergent or at least once a month. And here's something I didn't think about, is that protecting the paint with a coat of non-abrasive auto wax every 3 months. You think about it, dirt and grime and stuff can collect on your chair. On the painted surfaces, if you just take a mild non-abrasive auto wax and you just basically rub that down, either a spray or a paste or whatever, and you put that on there, then debris will not be able to adhere to it so easily, and it'll just be very simple and easy to clean. So it's the maintenance thing that you can do every few months. Just have a little bit of that and wipe it on there to keep that surface of that nice and slick, so that again, you're not going to get stuff collect on those products. Go back here. Okay. Now, axles and moving parts, and hopefully I'm going to try to move to my camera here so that I can show you this. So if you just give me a second, I'm going to. Right. Well, can you, Jose? Can you see? Can you see in my camera well enough if I just keep the slides up?
You would have to stop sharing so that your camera comes up and I can put you in focus.
Right. I'll just stop sharing there for a minute. Does that work?
Yep, and I will spotlight you.
Okay. So a couple of things about cleaning when it comes to the axles and stuff on the chair. I apologize. I don't want to make everybody dizzy here.
There you go.
Okay. So I've got a manual chair here. A couple of things that I recommend doing is obviously inside of the axles, okay, here in the front, where you see there's always the opportunity for things to get caught up in here. The various strings, the hair, the cat, the dog fur, whatever can get captured in here. Now, one of the things that I recommend doing, instead of dismantling all of this and taking the chance of losing a part or having it come loose, you can get yourself just these little dental tools or a nice little pick, and you just come in here and just basically painstakingly, but just be able to pull all of that debris out of here. And in doing so, you're basically going to help the chair to basically roll easier, and it's not going to capture dirt, which can eventually damage the actual bearing surface itself. If you do have something that ends up with a bit of a squeak or a rattle or something, and you want to do some lubrication, we do recommend that you only use something with a Teflon-based lubricant. Okay, so Teflon-based is because if you use like a WD-40, which I know a lot of people, that's a kind of a go-to for a lot of people. The WD-40 is going to wash away any of the manufactured applied lubrication that may be in that. So you don't want to wash away that with the WD-40. You really just want to basically use a little bit, maybe like the drip form of a Teflon-based lubricant. And the one that we use in the factory here, just as a recommendation, is what we call Tri-Flow, Triflow, just like it sounds, Tri-Flow. And you can get that on Amazon. You can pick that up, and basically that's a kind of lubricant that we would recommend. Again, you would, anytime any of these moving surfaces or something that is safe to use that Teflon-based type of material. Again, any of these moving spaces, again, that's a good way to do that. The other thing, in order for cleaning all of these devices, what I like to also recommend is instead of, and we always recommend, do not hose your chair down with water or anything like that. I always recommend getting something like this. This is actually for computers and stuff, to clean the keyboards and such. This is just air. You can hear it. And you can blow the chair down. You don't have to have an air compressor, although if you've got access to an air compressor, that's an easy way to basically clean that. But if you don't have an air compressor, you can buy these cans. It's got a little nozzle on it. And again, just blow the chair, and that helps to really get all of the debris out of there and out of all the cracks. Okay. The other thing that I recommend is when you're cleaning these chairs is to look for either the like a bottle brush, which is a brush, the nylon brush that you would use for cleaning bottles in your dishes type stuff. And those nylon ones, which are circular or tubular, can go in and out through all of the crevices and all the holes in order to clean that surface. Again, when you're done, you want to wipe it down with a damp cloth. Again, we want to avoid spraying any kind of bleaches or anything on here because some of these plastics are not going to go well with that, but something alcohol-based that you can use. Again, those bottle brushes are really good. And the other one is like a stiff nylon brush if you've got something really stubborn. Don't use a steel or brass brush because while it is very effective in getting stuff off, you may get too much off and you may actually damage the surface of that. So again, a bottle type of brush, if you look at something that says either a bottle brush or a tube type brush, those are pipe cleaner type brushes. Those are going to be much easier on the product, and it does a really good job of cleaning all of the surfaces. Again, on this, if you're looking, to clean, again, I really like the air. The air gets you to be able to do all that. Also, like a Swiffer, you're familiar with a Swiffer duster, again, going in all of the areas to really just to clean it up. And then finishing up all of the surfaces with that kind of automotive, it's a light automotive wax, will really help to keep the condition of your frame really in top notch.
So I want to add something there. If you can go back to the chair, when you take the opportunity to clean your cushion and you take the cushion off, you have the privacy flap that can accumulate a lot of stuff. And if you just wipe it down with a damp cloth, would you recommend that?
Yeah. So this, this is a great.
Sorry, can't really hear you too well.
This is very good, but it also, like you said,
Dan, can't hear you because you're behind the camera.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, that's a good point. Thanks for that. Okay, so I'm going to go back and share my screen again.
Yep.
Okay. So again, we want to avoid using any kind of WD-40 or 3-in-1 oil. We really focus on that Teflon based.
May want to fix your camera. Sorry.
You want to see me instead? Okay. Okay, so a little bit about the tires themselves. Okay, we obviously tire pressure is a big thing. If you have solid inserts, it obviously isn't going to be the appropriate. But if you do have pneumatic tires, which a lot of people do on manual chairs, it's going to be important. You need to check the inflation of that. Anytime you have tires that are underinflated, it's going to be very difficult to push the chair. You're going to know that right off the bat. If you've got, at least, especially if you got one lower than the other, you'll know, you're going to kind of know that. It's important to note that on the sidewall of the tire is going to give you the recommended tire pressure. We provide in our owner's manuals some guidelines based on what we sell, but you should really go back to what's on the chair, on the actual tire itself. It'll give you a maximum pressure. You don't want to overfill it because, again, you don't want to end up with a blowout, and then that's even going to be worse situation. Okay, so low pressure is going to make your also can make your wheel lock not engage fully. So if you're finding that your wheel locks are not fully engaging and you're sliding even when it's locked, it could simply just be the fact that you need to check the air pressure. And that's a good indication as to that as well. Okay. And obviously it could make you veer from side to side, you know, maybe lost control. Obviously overinflated tires are not good. And we always put these, you know, death or dismemberment things in the owner's manuals that basically says these are things that we really need to make sure that we're good on, because obviously those are going to be the critical things that are contacting the ground and providing stability of the chair. Now, when it comes to wheel locks themselves, it's important to know that the wheel lock has to be properly adjusted. All wheel locks on all manual chairs are going to have some amount of adjustment. I show you a couple of examples here as to how this is done, but the wheel locks are really going to be adjustable in some aspect. Now, we're going to recommend that you get that adjusted by a qualified person, but we know within COVID, you may not be so apt to be able to call somebody and have them come into your home because you may not feel comfortable, or you may not feel comfortable going into a place. So there is an adjustment. It is something that if you have a set of Allen keys, you know, I've got a set of Allen keys here, you could make that adjustment yourself, or have somebody who maybe can help you make that adjustment yourself. So the rule of thumb is that you should have the ball of the locking mechanism should indent into the tire at least 1/8 of an inch to get a good grip. Now, there's a trade-off, right? Because if the handle's too hard to push, you're not going to be able to get it over-centered. Okay, so if you make it too hard, then you're never going to get it locked all the way. If you've got it too loose, then it's not going to hold when you want it to hold. So there is kind of a sweet spot there. And what we recommend is that you do need to see that actual knurled part actually push into the tire tread to actually grip. And then you'll know when it's in there, you kind of move it back and forth, is it locked? But it can be adjusted. If you find that they have locked and are not working correctly, again, we're going to recommend you contact somebody. But if you do need to make that adjustment, the owner's manuals do have the procedure in order to adjust the wheel locks. Okay, you're going to slide the clamp towards the rear wheel until the wheel lock is embedded into the tire to prevent the wheel movement when the lock is positioned. It's very basic and straightforward. Now, if you are having difficulty getting the lock to work, all the manufacturers make extension handles for this, which give you additional leverage to actually push that in. But if you're using just the standard handle one, you're going to have to balance your hand strength or the hand strength of the caregiver with the amount of pressure that can be loaded onto that tire. But again, that is what is recommended there. Okay, when it comes to the tire spokes, a lot of people like this chair here, they don't have spokes. It has a composite wheel, and the composite wheel is just what it is. However, if you're using spokes are lighter weight. They can make the rim a little stiffer, gives you better push force into the wheels, and so a lot of people will use that. However, if you have loose or broken spokes, obviously this can cause looseness in the chair. It's going to wobble as it goes down the road. You're going to get squeaks and rattles and pops. The brakes, again, are maybe not holding because the wheel is not stiff. It's basically allowed to deform, and then the wheels are going to become out of true. Now, it is important to note that it is not recommended that you attempt to tighten the spokes yourself, because the way that those spokes work is that each spoke has an opposing spoke on the other side that helps to keep the wheel true. If you just willy-nilly go around and tighten the spokes up, eventually that wheel is going to get warped and it's no longer going to be straight. When that happens, you're again going to have to get it, have somebody repair it. Now, again, we recommend you take it to a dealership. However, bicycle shops are a good way to basically find somebody local, maybe a little easier to get to, that you can send your wheels to, that they can actually re-true it. They have a fixture, they roll it around, they know exactly where it is, they know exactly how to tighten in the sequence of doing that, because they do that on bicycles all day long. So it is acceptable to do that as well on all of that. When it comes to the tires, obviously worn tires are going to be a problem. Okay, that's the grip on your ground. That's, you know, that's the tread that in which you're basically running on. This can cause a reduction in traction if you've got worn tires. It again can cause your wheel locks to slip. A lot of these things are all kind of indicative. When your wheel lock stops to slip, look at your tire, not only the tire pressure, the spokes, all of those things are contributors to the wheel lock not holding. Okay, and obviously if you get a flat because of a worn tread, because it's gone too far, then you're obviously going to end up being stranded. Now, replacement needs to be done again by a qualified dealer. Although you can take, if you get the tires, obviously a tire shop, a bicycle shop can do that as well. You've got somebody who's really talented with doing that anyway. It could be done at home, but just make sure it's done properly and it has the right tire pressure when you're all done to do that. Now, in order to determine what point you need to replace your tires, our recommendation is that at any point, if it's going to be probably right around the most outer rim, if you lose a tread, okay, so it basically goes smooth on any one of those treads, you'll need to get it replaced. And in today's world, with the service maybe being delayed some, you probably should be a little proactive on that. And when it gets close, make sure you get that beforehand, because you don't want to be out in this cold, icy weather with no traction. Some of the frequencies of checks, again, this is just some recommendations that we offer. Weekly, you should check your tire pressure. You should check your wheel locks weekly at least to make sure all of those are engaging and working properly.
I want to interrupt.
Yeah, go ahead.
1 minute.
Yeah.
Just for those who decide to go to the bike shop, just wanted to mention that those services are not free and they're going to cost you. If you need to buy replacement parts like tires or tubes, on the side of the wheel, you have all the markings for the tire size, width, and the tube size that you're going to need.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Again, your insurance and your situation is going to dictate a lot of where you're going to get service done. So I don't want to try to assume that you're going to get those things covered under your insurance. So going back to here, every 3 months, we want to look for loose hardware. Give your chair a once over. You know, if you can get out of the chair and it's a manual chair, flip it over, make sure all the hardware is tight. If you've got a quick release axle, there can be some wear in those. The quick release axle has adjustment in it. Take the wheel when it's in place and move it in and out. Does it have too much play in it? If it's got a lot of play and you hear this knocking noise as you move it in and out, it may need to be adjusted as well. Obviously, we talked about wheels and tires and spokes. Casters, we didn't talk about casters, but the casters themselves can wear as well or become out of round and need to be replaced. Anti-tips should be able to secure and lock in place. If it's got an anti-tip wheel and you ride a lot on the anti-tip wheels or go off of curbs, those little wheels are going to start to get flat or worn out or maybe even broken. So it's a good idea to make sure that your anti-tips, again, every 3 months, this is just something we recommend. Taking a look at the upholstery, especially not only the cushion, but the sling itself. Either the back sling or if you've got the sling. A torn upholstery is going to expose hardware or can often expose hardware. When that hardware is exposed, your skin may be riding directly on that hardware. That is not good. So anytime you see a torn upholstery, you should look to get that replaced immediately, because you do not want to end up with some type of injury or sore that could result in that hardware being exposed against your skin. Armrest, for every 6 months, the armrest, okay, is it holding up well? Is the upholstery well? Is it torn? Does it need to be replaced? Axles and axle sleeves, and then the frame, and especially if you got a folding one, that cross member. Is it still good and solid when it's folded? Is there some play? Is the hardware getting loose? Does it need to have service? Obviously, get that looked at. And then we recommend that every year your chair goes in for an annual service with a dealer. And they can do a full once over on the chair, making sure that all of the tires, all of the axles, everything is in top-notch shape. You can get it repaired at that time, and you'll be ready for another year to go. And with that, it is important to understand that what has happened within the industry is that we understand that service in the home and in facilities is not something that we are really comfortable with all the time. And so there is this sense of shelter in place where people are staying in their homes, which is good, safe, keeps the spread of COVID down. But we balance that with the fact that people have equipment that may need to be serviced and or replaced. So within the guidelines that are provided to ATPs and dealers, therapists, VA hospitals, and all of that, there is an easing of the requirement to be in the home to do evaluations. There is the technology that we have today, as we're trying to use today, hopefully it's working good, of the video and even the phone calls or whatever. If you have need of service, feel free, or you should feel that a little bit more confident that you can get service even if you don't actually see a dealer or a therapist. You can actually do that remotely, even if you need a replacement chair and your condition hasn't changed, or your weight hasn't changed, or your size hasn't changed. Many times they can order you a replacement chair based on the previous time that you ordered a product, and they can actually have that delivered. It can be delivered outdoors or in a patio or whatever, and they don't even need to go in your home. But even if they do need to go in the home, we've all been trained about the proper PPE and stuff. My big goal there is that you do have an avenue to get service, and you do have an avenue to get a repair or a replacement part on your product. Again, you need to judge your risk level and what you have need of with all of that. But the industry has made a large effort to make sure that we can continue to provide service for you even in these difficult times. And I don't know, Jose, if you have any experience with that or ever heard what that, but I really want to just basically kind of reassure people that there is service available.
No, absolutely. And I have had my chair serviced where the service tech came and they repaired the chair outside of my building. I had my aide push it downstairs, or he would have come up and taken it downstairs. But unfortunately, I had someone with me, and they take the chair and replace the batteries, casters. They did general maintenance, the yearly maintenance on the chair outside of my building, and return the chair that moment. But this won't be the case for all services. They might have to take the chair with them.
Right.
But if it can be done, it will be done outside of the home.
Yeah. And again, just, you need to just work with your local supplier or a clinician, or basically, but there's again just been that easing of, because it used to be you always had to go in the home, you always had to do that home evaluation, or you always had to go into the facility. And we've really made accommodations to make sure that you can get the services.
And another point that's being made, someone is, try to think of these things ahead of time, because due to some certain limitations or insurances, it might take some delay in getting those parts in. So if you know you're going to need tires let's say in a month, try to say, okay, let me go ahead and start ordering these tires so that, you know, it can go through the doctor's process, the insurance, and get everything cleared so that you can get those tires in time. And as far as your question, Valerie, yes, absolutely. They can come and replace your batteries at your home. But depending on the company that you are with, they may want to take the chair or they'll do it outside in their vehicle. So you have to talk to the company that you're working with and see what their procedure is.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for that. I appreciate that. Okay, so for power chairs, a few things about power chairs in the minutes we have left. First of all, batteries, just kind of some of the things that, because I've been in power, you know, doing this for about 30 years, it's really important on the batteries to use the batteries intended for your chair. I know there's other technologies, people want to use lithium and whatever, but we really want to make sure that you're going to get the most life out of your battery and most in the safest experience that you've got. So always use the batteries that are intended for your chair. Automotive batteries are not going to be a safe alternative for you. You should use the deep gel batteries or what we call AGM batteries on your chair. It's also important not to mix and match batteries. You may find that, hey, I've got a good group 22 battery, which is a smaller battery, and I also have a good group 24 battery. If you mix those batteries onto one chair and it goes through its charging cycle, one's going to end up, you know, and you're going to have a loss of life on those batteries. So it's always good to make sure you keep the same size battery and also the same type. One battery may be a gel battery and one may be an AGM battery. It's a short thing about what the difference is between a gel and an AGM battery. They're both lead acid batteries, but the way that they capture the actual lead acid within the plates is different. The gel battery uses a gelatin type of material where the AGM has it impregnated into the actual plates. The difference is that the gel battery will give you a longer life. That means you can keep those batteries and charge them more times than you can an AGM battery. So you may say, well, I'm always going to use a gel battery because I want to have the most life. Well, the advantage of an AGM battery is you get longer range within a given day. So if you're outdoors, you're doing a lot of driving, you want to keep those batteries working for a longer period of time throughout that day. The AGM battery actually charges up a little bit higher and will give you a longer life. So it's like a bigger fuel tank than the gel ones. But it has a shorter amount of time that you can charge that battery before it'll need to be replaced. So again, you can gauge that when you ask for the different battery types. A gel battery is going to give you longer life. You can be able to use that longer before you need to replace them. The AGM battery is going to give you greater range within a given day. It's going to go further, about 10% further than you would with a gel battery. So that's just kind of a little bit of education there.
I have a question.
Yeah.
The AGM batteries, are they approved for air travel?
Yes.
Okay. I did not know that. I thought it was just a gel.
No, AGM ones are as well.
All right, cool. Good to know.
So, and again, you should always replace your batteries in pairs. If you get one battery that has a bad cell and goes bad, and I make a caveat, if it's within the first few months and you have one battery goes bad, it's okay to have it replaced. Most of the time that's going to be under warranty. But if it's 6, 8 months or a year old and one battery is not keeping a charge and it's going down faster, you just need to go ahead and change them both, because the batteries will have a kind of a cycling system. Actually, when you first get the batteries, they will not charge up as high as they do after maybe 50 to 100 cycles in. They actually improve with performance, and then they start to again go through its life cycle. So again, it's just important to kind of change those in pairs. Typically, we say batteries last 12 months to 18 months. We know people who have had batteries for 10 years and keep going on those same batteries. But we know that the number of charge cycles it takes to do that is basically 12 months to 18 years. 12 months to 18 months. Again, it could go up to maybe 2.5 years as well. When it comes to charging, the most important thing about charging is, first of all, use the charger that comes with the chair. Even if you may have one that was on an old scooter that was a 15 amp charger, you may think, hey, that's a great charger. I want to use that one because it's a high amperage. That charger may not be good for using on your batteries. Make sure you use the charger that comes with the chair that you've purchased. Also important to charge your batteries every night. Some people will say, hey, you know what? I've only got 1 or 2 green down. I'll skip it tonight and I'll wait till tomorrow. You don't know what tomorrow brings. You may need a long day tomorrow, right? So always charge your batteries every night. You're not going to damage them by charging them every night. It's not like a NiCad battery where it gets this bad memory if you keep topping them off. They'll eat that up and not have a problem. But again, just as practice, if you want to get the longest life out of your batteries, charge them every night. Get in a habit of just plugging it in and charging it every night. The one thing is that if you do going to store your battery, maybe it's in the wintertime now, and you're just going to say, you know what, I'm going to put my power chair away. I'm going to use my manual chair. I'm going to go on vacation, whatever, and it's going to sit, again, for more than a week. We recommend you fully charge the batteries up, and when you park it, you unplug the batteries. Now, you may not be able to get to the batteries themselves. On our chair, there's a pigtail right on the back of the chair, the back of the seat, where you can unplug the joystick, because if you don't, the chair is actually sitting there listening, looking for the opportunity to turn on. That little bit of listening or looking at the joystick for the on-off switch is what we call a quiescent current draw. And what happens is it's very small, but over time, those batteries will become depleted just because they're plugged in, even if the batteries are turned off, or even if the controller is turned off. So again, just unplug it. It helps to secure it, so when you're ready to turn it back on, it'll be ready to go. Cleaning your power chair. Do not hose down your chair, okay? I know that especially y'all living in the north where there's salt and there's grime and there's mud, you're like, hey, I'm just going to take this to the pressure washer. I'm going to take it to my outside, get the hose and hose it down. It is not a good idea. There are other methods to clean your chair that do not require you to actually use a spray hose or a wash, okay? And also do not use solvents, bleaches, or abrasives or synthetic detergents on your chair, okay? Again, we want to use something alcohol-based because it dries quickly and such, okay? Now, how should you do that? I've got a link down here, okay? This is a video that you can go to on the YouTube site. This is from Magic Mobility. Sunrise Medical actually owns Magic Mobility. Magic Mobility is in Australia, and I've been there once, actually twice, and they are very hard on their chairs, and there's a lot of outdoor use with their chairs, and so I consider them to be kind of the experts when it comes to cleaning your chairs. Again, what I recommend for cleaning your chair, okay, again, if you're picking up salts and all that stuff on your chair, okay, when you pick that up, it's typically in a kind of a crusted type of, or maybe a slightly damp material. If you hose it down, you're basically saying, I'm going to turn all this salt into salt water. It's going to get into the areas of my chair, and it's going to start to corrode. Now, I'll tell you, on our chairs, and I think other manufacturers as well, have understood the fact that people drive their chairs outdoors, and they drive them in the wintertime, and they drive them in the mud, and they drive them, and they drive them, and they drive them. And we want people to do that. That's fine. But so what we have done is, in Sunrise, what we've done is we've taken the chassis and we say, let's go to the automotive industry and let's use what they have already developed as standards for making sure the chair doesn't corrode. We do a process where we take the bare steel, we coat it with an e-coating, which goes into all the nooks and crannies and all the threaded holes. Then we put the powder coat on the outside for the color, and that has improved the durability of the chair and the chassis itself. Then we've taken the actual pivot points for all of the suspension. We've gone to a stainless steel pins with a polymer, almost like a plastic or a polymer type of bushing material for all of the joints. In the past, the old way of things of doing it is we would lubricate stuff. We would use brass or copper or bushing on there, and over time that would wash away, and then you'd have steel on steel, and then rust would occur. So the industry has gotten a lot smarter and used modern materials in order to make sure that the chassis do not rust up like they did in the past. However, again, we don't want to go and start hosing it down. Instead, let the chair kind of dry a little bit and then get a stiff nylon brush and basically just brush it out from underneath, and then all of the nooks and crannies, those bottle brushes, cleaning it all out and then wiping it down with a damp cloth. That's the best method to doing that. I know that in the tires, people will get mud and stuff in the tread of the tire. Again, using a nylon brush, that's a stiff brush, you can just roll the chair around and brush all of that debris out and clean it that way. And then final, you can use a damp cloth to actually get all of the rest of it off as well. But again, there are electronics, there are batteries, there's wiring, there's electricity inside your chassis. Adding water to it is not going to be something you want to do. And again, I recommend you watch this video if you get a chance. I think we'll be able to send out this presentation so you'll have all of the links on there available. Okay, so maintenance on this, we're closing down here. We want to make sure we're checking the tires, obviously checking batteries daily, checking your joystick, and then going through and checking your seating, making sure your cushions are fitted. Power chairs have a tendency that the cushions want to shift as you're moving through your motion. Cushions want to shift. We have Velcro, we have snaps, we have items on there, but they're always going to have that opportunity to shift. You want to make sure you got great positioning. And if I can say this once, I can say it 100 times, do not sit on your sling. Your sling is not a proper cushion, okay? And so I know that's difficult many times to get away from, but, you know, we want to use the sheepskin covers and all this stuff. Those are not going to provide great positioning for you. Make sure you're using the proper cushions. And then going on with maintenance weekly, we should check the connectors. If you're using power seating, there are wires and connectors that go through. If you get a pinched wire, you're going to end up with a situation that could leave you stranded. So kind of keep an eye on those things. Make sure those connections are good. The parking brake itself, the chair has an automatic parking. When you come to a stop, it's supposed to lock. Make sure that when you come to a stop, you hear the audible click, and you maybe have an attendant kind of rock you back and forth, making sure it's locked in. You don't want to find out that they're not locking when you're outdoors on a hill. Better to do that on a kind of a routine check. Again, the joystick, that's your primary contact. That's your lifeblood. Make sure that the joystick is not bent. When you power it up, make sure it basically goes back to neutral. There's a little rubber gaiter in there that protects the inner workings. If that gets torn, just a little bit of debris gets in there, it's going to cause the joystick to stay out of neutral. Not a good situation. Make sure you check that on a regular basis. Again, and then the chair has a lot of functionality. You've got modes, you've got seating modes and profiles and speeds. Good to check to make sure all those working. If a module or something gets unplugged, that mode will go away and you won't see it anymore. If you find that happens, again, calling in for service is great. Checking the frame, ensuring the knobs and the seats are always tight so that the batteries are secure. And then quarterly, we're going to check again for seating. We're going to check for any of the seat belts or the harnesses or chest harnesses and make sure there's no wear in those. Again, checking for loose hardware, any broken components, all of that. And again, if you ever have a problem, you know, get a hold of an authorized Sunrise dealer, or if whatever your manufacturer is, get a hold of them. And then again, annually, we want to make sure that we've got that service. We already talked about tires, so I won't cover this again. We run out of time. So I'm going to stop there so that we can handle any questions for the last few minutes that we've got.
David Hurd, he says, oh, how long should the batteries be charged each day?
So we recommend that the batteries should be charged. There is an indicator on the light on the front of the chargers that will indicate when the batteries are fully charged. We typically say that 8 hours is what is needed to fully charge your batteries. That's a typical time frame. 6 to 8 hours is what's needed. That's why we say overnight, you should be fine.
And we had a comment from someone. Would you recommend individuals continue to charge their chair even if they do not use them, especially during the times of COVID that we're staying home more often?
Yes, because the charger is an automatic charger. So even if you put it on and maybe it's just a little bit down, if it fully charges, the charger will turn off and your batteries are safe. So it's always better to have the batteries charged than to let them get depleted.
Valerie, do you have an additional question? If so, please type it into the chat or the question and answer. So while she's thinking about it, I'm going to say that, some of these tips and tricks, can keep you from your chair having to go to, the dealer, and keep you down for a long period of time. I've had many of these things happen to me, in my 25 years of being paralyzed and having many different chairs. I've had brakes go out, I've had flats, I've had wires pinched. Recently, as of this weekend, I had my joystick almost completely fall off. Of course, these are things that we can't anticipate, especially a joystick falling off, but having a little bit of know-how, a little bit of skill, and a little bit of preventative maintenance can keep your chairs up and running and keep you mobile. So I want to thank Dan and Angie for providing this information, and thank everyone that has joined us. And we look forward to the next one.
Yeah, if you guys have any other suggestions or stuff that you want, even if it's not specifically from Sunrise, definitely let Jose know, because we can maybe work on getting some connections with other people, because this is a really, really great outlet that you guys have created here during COVID. So do our best to help you.
Yep, definitely. And if you have any additional questions about these topics, you can also always email me at jhernandez@unitedspinal.org, and I can, follow up with Dan and Angie if you guys need. All right. So again, thank you very much, and thank you for joining.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you, Angie. Thank you, Dan.
All right.
Thanks.
Good day.